Hey guys, I'm putting this video together because this morning I didn't record the call and there were a few people that I wanted to make sure to include in this. So I'm going to put this in the email. That's probably why you're watching it right now, and kind of use this as just the resource that we're building upon in the next few weeks and into the beginning of the new year. So this is called The Landscape of Life, and this is a tool that I've been learning from Mike Breen, and we're currently working through. And so it's a means of looking at our lives and the God encounters that we have. And so that's kind of some of the key language, the God encounters. And so starts off, I kind of draw this mountaintop. Today we looked at how Moses met God on the mountain. And we have different experiences in our own lives that are like this, that are kind of mountaintop-like experiences. We can call these eruptive moments. They're eruptive because we come into contact with the presence of God. That's typified in kind of this, visual illustration as lava that would come, from the mountain and from these mountaintop experiences where we come into contact with the presence of God and the Holy Spirit. That's really the means of all of the difference making that happens. So Exodus chapter 33 talks about this account of Moses up on the mountain, literally with God, and then he says, "Show me your glory." And so it's this eruptive encounter where a huge revelation of who God is comes to Moses during that time frame. And so we have mountaintop experiences where we've had God encounters, and God has, changed us or spoken to us or revealed part of his character to us. We also have these moments that are different than the mountaintop, which are usually more on the positive side. There may be a good, healthy, holy fear there, but these moments are a little bit like moments where kind of the ground is kind of like wearing away underneath us. It may be in a slow process. And so we call these moments, let me get that back. We call these moments of erosion. And so these are erosive moments. Usually these are longer seasons of time. In this, we also still come into contact with the same Holy Spirit. And so he's revealed to us. Usually we discover this a lot of times at the bottom, maybe in a broken moment. This is, again, I use the illustration often of somebody who might say, man, I would never ask for cancer and I would never wish it upon anybody. But through that journey, God revealed himself in some huge ways, or his faithfulness was so true and strong during those time frames. And so that's an evidence of an erosive moment. Usually we're gaining perseverance during that time frame. The other kind of moment is a moment that's similar. It's kind of on the negative side, but this is like a fault line here. It's like an earthquake happens. So we call those earthquake moments. These are the moments that, different than the erosive moment that usually happens like over time, these are moments that happen almost instantly. So my go-to for that, it really did have a huge impact upon Kimberly and I, was when Hannah had the seizure a couple of years ago. It was this immediate moment. Oftentimes it felt like literally the ground fell out right from underneath me. It felt like God was nowhere to be found. In fact, that was a lot of anger that rose up inside of my heart. But still, nonetheless, what happened is during that time frame, even with him not, I didn't recognize his being there. I came into contact with the presence of God, and it was, in my mind, as I'm looking at it now, looking back, I could see where he was all over it. And he was there, and he was faithful, as he says that he is. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Earthquakes or erosion or eruption, he's there. But it's a lot about, do I see him? And in those cases, what I think I'm learning is that I can't necessarily see him until it's after the fact. It's one of those hindsight is 2020 moments. So the last kind of these four landscapes of life is actually where we have the chance to engage in the process. The other ones, we respond. These we actually are engaging and potentially even initiating or playing a big part. This is where we learn to be able to usually use a shovel here to typify that, dig and excavate. And so excavation is the term that we use here. Excavation is when, we learn things like spiritual disciplines that allow us opportunities to be able to, again, come into contact with the presence of God. Now here, these may not be, like the eruptive moments where we come into contact with the presence of God. It could be somewhat of a slow trickle. The Bible would potentially call that, the still small voice of the Lord. And so it could be that we have daily habits of reading the Bible, or we're practicing Sabbath on a weekly basis. And so God speaks to us in those moments, or we're adventurers, or we like to be out of doors. So we put ourselves in those places which is a form of discipline and excavation and then being able to come into contact with the presence of God. And so, we have these big God encounter moments that take place because we're there, with God in these places where we've kind of particularly positioned us. And so God encounters is what we're using as language to be able to describe where have we seen God break through. This ends up being, it's the landscape of life, is the phrase that we use to call this term or this tool. It's really a picture of your lifeline, your timeline, but not in a chronos time frame, but in a kairos time frame, because these are usually the big moments where God's really gotten a hold of our attention. Now, it doesn't only have to be big moments. We literally can have small erosive times where we're quick to tune into what God's doing, or small earthquakes where we're quick to tune in and catch up with what God's doing, or even small eruptive moments. But it's through the process of learning to excavate that I think in my life, I've learned to be able to get better and better at the other ones because I'm intentionally pursuing those things. And so we are progressively working through this tool. Today, what we did is we told a few God encounter stories of eruptive moments. And so we heard times where God had spoken audibly to some of our friends, where God had used dreams to be able to really change things, or where, he had shown up in kind of the midst of being in nature and reading the Bible. All of those are valid ways, and he speaks in a bunch of different ways, but they were kind of eruptive, mountaintop-like experiences. I also mentioned, too, that these times, as we share these stories, these aren't necessarily the stories we tell everyone because they're usually somewhat personal. There's maybe a level of intimacy to it. Now, we may be excited to tell the story, but we also don't, we know that they're so valuable. We don't want to kind of cast our pearls before swine, so to speak. And so this is a landscape of life. What we'll do in the next couple of weeks as we get together is we'll then share God encounter stories of erosive nature, and then earthquakes, and then excavation. And so this is going to give us a chance to be able to get to know one another better, listen to one another. But we're going to be digging into this tool, letting it seep into our lives. I'm wanting to see this overflow into your life so that you're seeing a landscape of life for your spouse, for the team that you lead at work or at church. And so that you're beginning to think that everybody has these God encounter moments, and you may be a liberator to help unlock some of these moments and maybe bring some new sense of revelation to other people. So first, we're going to apply this into our own lives, share the stories, but I want this tool to be used in other places where you're planted. And so hope this is helpful. Blessings to you. Have a great day.